That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and I can't help but, like I say, I hate bringing up the Tubby stuff, on and on and on. And no one could have anticipated that Tubby Smith was not going to work out the way he did. First of all, they guaranteed him. This is from unnamed sources. They guaranteed him, you come here, we're going to be in the Big 12.
Well, I'll tell you the source on that. Tubby Smith.
Yeah, I mean, right. Well, there you go. I mean, I'm talking about like who told him.
He said it to me personally, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and then they guaranteed him they were going to be in the Big 12, and then they're not in the Big 12, and then it's like, well, I just left a job that I had rolling, and now I'm here, and we're not going to be in the Big 12, and maybe I'm not going to go out and bust my butt recruit and stuff. And yeah, it didn't work out. I mean, we certainly don't disagree with the fact that it didn't work out. We don't disagree with the fact that he wasn't recruiting on the level that we expected. And, but there's, like you said, a lot of people like to be revisionists and not really recall all the facts of the situation accurately.
Yeah, my impression before now had been that it was Rudd that really pushed for Tubby, but when he turned on him and wanted to fire him, Bowen said that's ridiculous to fire a guy after 2 years, but I don't honestly think that was. And I may be wrong about that, but either way, there's no question that his track record with basketball was not good. And if you look at his previous stop, which I did, Bowen came from San Jose State, where he also rebuilt football, but basketball which is the worst. Basketball was the worst program in the Mountain West, and it was a precipitous fall for Memphis basketball, if I may use a word that I probably shouldn't.
He actually, my uncle was a professor at San Jose State when he came into the job there, and he was part of the what's the word I'm looking for? You would know better than I would.
Search committee?
No. Like to make sure that all the academics are up to snuff and whatever.
Yeah, the ombudsman.
Not quite. That's not the. It's not the. I don't know. I can't think of the word. He was part of that group, and then he was not retained under Bowen.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah.
Bowen's also had a reputation as a guy that's really tough to work for. I knew a guy that's in the industry and not an easy guy to work for. He wasn't on Twitter. It wasn't a great fit, and all this has been pointed out before.
Yeah.
But so you move on. Yeah. It's not the end of the world.
Speaking of moving on, let's move on. As you mentioned, the NBA draft lottery was last night.
Top notch.
And it's amazing that such an event, as in like reporting where ping pong balls fell and where basketball teams are going to draft, is such a big event and such a beacon of shining hope for so many franchises and a total Debbie Downer for others. And your Memphis Grizzlies, where they only had, a 6 or 8% chance to fall into the top four, they were able to, lady luck, get on their side. They ended up in the top four, a chance for the number 1 pick, and when it came down to it, they got the number 2 pick. The Lakers also found themselves in the top four, even though the odds were heavily stacked against them as well. They end up with the 4th pick, and the Knicks get the 3rd. Is that right? Sounds right?
That's right. Well,
and then, and number 1 pick would go to the New Orleans Pelicans. And, of course, immediately following that announcement, Anthony Davis makes sure to remind people that he still wants out of there. So,
yeah, good for him.
Sure. Whatever.
Well, the Pels have even more leverage now to cut a deal. So
absolutely.
The Grizzlies, an exciting night for the Grizzlies, Iran. Look, I didn't know. If you had asked me before the draft, before the lottery, who was the somewhat consensus number 2 pick, I would have had no clue whatsoever in terms of the answer to that question. But immediately, Ja Morant, who I'd obviously heard of, emerged, at least in the circles that I travel in, as the consensus number 2 pick. Your thoughts on the potential Ja Morant pick or going in another direction with another player, or perhaps trading the pick.
Well, here's the thing about the John Morant. It is basically that you said it. He is, by all accounts, or by most accounts, the second, consensus number 2 pick. And we're in a situation where, or the Grizzlies are in a situation where they have a guy like Mike Conley, who is, getting towards the end of his prime, and you have to make a decision. Number one, do you want to keep him on your team and have him suffer through a couple more losing seasons as they try and rebuild, which would put him at 34 years old, and then where does that put him? You're trying to put the hands of a young team that you just rebuilt in the hands of a 34-year-old, where not all that is bad, but at the same time, you could use this opportunity and do him a favor and yourself a favor to some extent to try and trade him for assets and picks. Totally go into, I guess it would be tank mode. So next year you've got John Morant, you've got Dylan Brooks, you've got Jaren Jackson Jr., a couple of these other young guys, and then you really stink again next year. The next season, hopefully you get your top 6 protected pick. You got a third guy you're going to pick up in the top 6 of the draft. And then the next year, when the pick automatically goes to Boston, you should have 3 really good draft picks, plus a couple of free agents you're going to pick up along the way.
Well, 3 or 4, depending on what you get in return.
Depending on what you get in return for Conley. And you should be in the playoffs, and that pick will be in the late teens or 20s, and it won't really matter that you have to give it to Boston. So go ahead.
The only thing I'll say to that is, you say you should be in the playoffs. The truth is, Philly. Let's take a look at Philadelphia, and I don't want to get into details because I'll screw it up. But they tanked for 5 years.
Yeah.
And they picked top 4 or 5 every year for 4 or 5 years. And then eventually they got to the playoffs. But they sucked for a long time.
Yeah.
And they sucked bad for a long time. And they had to hit on so many of these, right? And I realize there were some trades and some other stuff. But, you can get 3 or 4 good picks and only end up with 1 or 2 good players.
Right.
And, that happens more often than you would think. Because it's just, you got to hit every time.
Well, that's the thing. I was discussing with a friend of mine last night, and I said, that's the thing about Golden State. They hit on a second-round pick in Draymond Green. They hit on Thompson. They hit on Curry. Boom, 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 and that's all. That's what it took to get them, really back, up to the top of the Western Conference. You're right. You can get 3 or 4 picks, and only 1 or 2 of them pan out. But you have to. You have to make that decision to go forward. The other difference is when you talk about teams like Philly tanking and Memphis tanking, a Memphis tank can only be 2 or 3 years. Philly, big cities, Philly, New York, LA, they can afford to be bad for more than 2 or 3 years because you're drawing from a metropolitan area in the tens of millions of people, where you're still going to find people to come to your ball games. You're still going to find people to watch them on TV. Where in Memphis, once it's kind of like out of sight, meaning, the Grizzlies are really terrible and who wants to watch a 13-win team or whatever, once they're out of sight and out of mind and the Memphis Tigers are on the upswing, you really risk, financial detriment to the franchise, and it could get risky trying to bring those people back when the team does turn around.
Right. We've talked about that. And I agree. I mean, you want it to be a quicker rebuild. And some have said, look, you're not going to get value for Conley. Keep him around. Let him coach. Let him not coach, but let him work with these young guys. Who knows? Maybe you're a fringe playoff team, if you have a healthy Conley and you bring back the big guy,
Valanciunas.
Sakalidis.
I wish Sakalidis, Valanciunas. Yeah. On the other hand, he's been such a great ambassador for the city, and I really would love to see him play his entire career here. But at the same time, I would love to see them do him a favor and trade him to a team that's going to actually, have a chance in the next couple of years.
Yeah. So. But the Grizzlies were a coin toss away from Zion Williamson.
They were.
Instead, they'll have to, which is a can't miss, right? And instead, they'll have to make a pick where they could miss, right? I mean, a lot of people say, "Hey, John Morant, who did he play against? He's He's not an undersized guard, is he? I think he's like 5. The other options are the R.J. Barrett kid from Duke. I see the third is the kid that I guess the kid that got injured, or the fourth, the kid that got injured at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
You got a kid from Virginia in the lottery.
Let me tell you about another point guard that people wondered how good he could be in the NBA because they don't know who he played against.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he went to Weber State. You ever heard of him? Yeah, Lillard.
Talking about Dame Lillard?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's...
Or John Stockton, I mean, it's not hard to see.
John Stockton, yeah, no doubt.
Gonzaga, baby.
Yeah, it's true. All right, Jay, I'm going to have to get to a break.
Yeah, and I got to get out of here.
Okay. No problem. Take care of your business. We'll talk to you tomorrow. All right?
Peace. Yeah.
All right. That was Jay B-Ball Jones Brenner. Drop him from the phone calls. When we come back, we'll talk more about the Grizzlies. I'll take your phone calls, 901-452-3094. Tell me what you want to do with the pick. Tell me what you want to do regarding Mike Conley. I will tell you about a couple of things when we come back, namely the University of Memphis baseball game yesterday, and we will talk about the basketball game that occurred last night between the Warriors and the Trailblazers, and we'll have some other good stuff for you in this second segment. You're listening to WMQM AM 1600, the Ion Sports with B-Ball Jones, every weekday morning from 8 until 9 o'clock, right here, and live streaming on YouTube. Of course, I forgot to start the stream on time, but we're on there now. If you want to go to WMQM 1600 Memphis on the YouTube stream, you'll see the live, button to click on live, and we'll be on there. There's nothing to see today because Jay's not in the studio, and my camera, I don't know if it's up or not, but you will see the big logo, the Ion Sports with B-Ball Jones. Anyway, we'll be right back after this on AM 1600. Right back.
Abundance, real American heroes. Real American heroes. Today we salute you, Mr. Chinese food delivery guy. Mr. Chinese food delivery guy. Without you, we'd be forced to do the unthinkable when we wanted Chinese food. Drive to a restaurant. But you, sir, bring it to us in under 20. Ride like the wind. Armed with your rickety bike, you battle traffic, bad weather, and the occasional busted elevator. And why do you do it? Because somewhere a guy is waiting for his Kung Pao crab puffs, and he's got $1.57 with your name on it. That's 10%. So crack open an ice cold Bud Light, oh mercenary of the Mandarin chicken, and know that when America is looking for a man to get the job done, you do deliver. You deliver. Bud Light beer has with recipients. Get your sea shined up, grab a stick of juicy fruit. The taste is gonna move ya. Take a sniff, pull it out. The taste is gonna move you when you pop it in your mouth. Juicy fruit is gonna move ya. It juices soft, it gets right to ya. Juicy fruit, the taste is gonna move ya.
Hey folks, the Ion Sports here, and I'm here to tell you about some top-notch lawyers who are ready to work hard for you and to give you the attention and respect you deserve. It's Douglas and Runger. Kurt Runger and his crew will work hard for you in a number of different type cases, including personal injury, divorce and family law, probate law, bankruptcy, criminal defense, and even immigration. Let Kurt and BartlettLawyers.com represent you the next time you require legal counsel. Their firm has over 50 years of experience, and that will go a long way when it comes to taking your case. You can find them on the web at BartlettLawyers.com or call them at 388-5805. That's 388-5805. Bartlett Lawyers, WMQM.com. Welcome back to the Eye on Sports with B-Ball Jones. Yeah, that's right. Ira Lipsy here, the Eye on Sports. B-Ball Jones, unable to make it into the studio today, but we just heard from him. Where we were discussing the Memphis athletic department situation, and I think everything will work out just fine. They'll go through a search. They'll go have a search committee. They'll do all that good stuff, and I think that hopefully they will hire the right person, someone who is equally to the task to help maintain the current success of the football program and to maintain what's going on with basketball as well, and continue the program to get in a position where, should it ever happen that there's going to be realignment, expansion, etc., that Memphis will be in a position to get into a Power 5 conference where they should be, and that would be fantastic. The real question to me is, and I don't really know enough about who does what and who's out there, but do you go for a younger, go-getter, assistant athletic director type from a Power 5 school, or do you go for a like a retread, or a guy who's already a guy who's already at a school, maybe a smaller conference, but he's already he's already an athletic director, but at a smaller school. That's an interesting question, if to try and tackle. Of course, I don't know enough about it, so really, they'll do the right thing, I'm sure. Anyway, last night the Golden State Warriors took on Portland Trailblazers in Game 1. Of course, the biggest news out of that game was, who were Mom and Pop Curry going to be rooting for, as son Seth plays for the Trailblazers, and Steph, of course, as you know, plays for the Golden State Warriors. They wore jerseys that had both sons, like half and half jerseys. Pretty clever. We've seen it done before. But congrats to the Curry family for dominating basketball right now, I guess. Warriors, Suns, Kevin Durant pretty much put the screws to Portland last night and won by a hefty margin. This isn't working. They won by a hefty margin, and that's to be expected. The first game at home. Portland coming off a tough 7-game series in a tough Game 7 in Denver. Golden State defeated the Rockets in 6. They were, I guess, a little bit more rested. But be that as it may, Golden State seems to be on their way to getting to the NBA Finals again. A lot of people think that Portland have, a decent chance, and I think they have a decent chance if, everything has to fall right. I actually heard a quote from somebody, and they said, well, Golden State can play good for 4 games or whatever and win the series. Portland has to play great, for 7 games to win the series. I mean, you look at the final margin of victory was 22 points, and Golden State outscored Portland by 16 in the 4th. So, when they go on runs like that, you better be able to match them shot for shot. Lillard, a good game, 19 points, 6 assists. McCollum, a good game, 17 points. Rodney Hood coming off his little knock, 17 points. But that's not 30 for each of them. Curry had 36, Thompson had 26, and they got enough from Draymond and the rest of the guys to put them over the top. You even saw some run for some of their other lesser-known players towards the end of the game, get some guys some rest. So that's what's going on there. And then tonight, of course, will be the beginning of the Eastern Conference Finals. That will be Milwaukee, the Bucks. Oh my gosh, this probably isn't even working, is it? The Bucks versus the Toronto Raptors. That's going to be in Milwaukee. Milwaukee 6.5-point favorites against Toronto. If you think that it's not going to be Milwaukee over Toronto, well, you're welcome to your opinion, but I'm going to have to say I think it's pretty much going to be Milwaukee. And that's just because I think they just got Malcolm Brogdon back. They've got the depth. They haven't had to deal with any. They haven't had to deal with some of the issues that Toronto has as far as like consistency. They do Milwaukee over Toronto. Kawhi Leonard, who has been phenomenal. He hit that game when he was welcome to your. Bear with opinion, but I'm going to have to say. Okay. Anyway, Kawhi Leonard hit that game shot, and now they are in the Eastern Conference Finals. Big question will be whether or not Kawhi decides to stay in Toronto and stay as the cornerstone of the franchise. They're going to have to get big play out of Kyle Lowry. That's all I can tell you. Kyle Lowry, and they got to get something more out of Marc Gasol. Memphis is going to be his favorite Milwaukee. Marc Gasol has got to come in big time in that series. All right, let me quickly get to the story from last night. I don't know if any of you saw this. As it was happening, there was a lot going on. And that's just because I think they just got knocked just prior to the lottery, the announcement of the draft lottery. As I mentioned on the show, University of Memphis baseball played last night at Millington. They haven't had to deal with any in the Bade Howard Classic against UT Martin. Game started at 6 o'clock. It was in the early goings, bottom of the second. Early fireworks in that game. It was UT Martin led off the game with a single and then a home run, take a 2-0 lead. And that's a pretty big ballpark. You're talking about they haven't had to deal with some of the issues that talking about Toronto has as far as the alleys, at least 380. So it's a big field, especially compared to FedEx Park where they play, where it's only like 389 to center field. Anyway, so then Tigers come back. They get runner on base, and Hunter Goodman, most likely going to be the American Athletic Conference Freshman of the Year in baseball. Like consistency, tie the game up. And Milwaukee over Toronto. Bottom of the second, as I was about to introduce one of the Tiger batters, there was a noise that came from Kawhi Leonard, who has been the third side, and it sounded like a gunshot or a car backfiring. Well, over in that same area, there were several antique military vehicles, a Jeep, a personnel carrier. He hit that game like a Baker that they probably used for like parades or something like that. And they were on display for Veterans Appreciation Day, and people were welcome to go look at the cars and check them out inside and out. And apparently there was a Jeep there, and apparently a little kid was playing around. But I'm going to have to say a gun in the bag, and the kid thought that it was a toy gun. He didn't know, and he pulled the trigger, and the gun went off. It was loaded. And anyway, Kawhi Leonard hit the pretty much. And now they are in the Eastern Conference Finals. And the big question will be whether or not that's what we know right now. Kawhi decides to stay in Toronto, and could have been for a lot of people that were there. I was in the press box. I did not see stay as the cornerstone of the franchise. Particular Thankfully, I didn't really want to see it, but there were people were in the stands. They're going to have to get a big play out of Kyle Lowry. The immediate aftermath when the shot went off, everybody looked over there. Tell you, Kyle Lowry, and they got to get something more out of Marcus Martin players. All Memphis all ran all. Apparently, they said Marcus told me this guy to come in first time. There had been a shooting at one of their games. So I can understand in that series. All right, let me quickly get to the story from last. Went back to the dugout. They cleared the field. Emergency responders came. We asked the fans tonight. I don't know if any of you saw this, or at least as it was happening. And then when they cleared the emergency scene, there's a lot going on. And that's just because I think they just got knocked games. So that was the last game of the season prior to in Memphis. They still have the lottery series coming up this weekend at East Carolina, and then the conference tournament. The announcement of the draft lottery. But that was the last game in Memphis, and unfortunately, we only got to do an inning and a half, as I was my last game of the season as the public address announcer. As I mentioned on the show, is a big stadium, and I remember rocking back. University of Memphis baseball got to that last night at Millington. They haven't had to deal with any USA baseball for the Olympics in the Dave Howard Classic against UT Martin Stadium. It could use a coat of paint and some other stuff in the press box. Namely air conditioning and some other things. But game started at 6 o'clock. It was an early going, nice place, and hopefully maybe they'll find some money. Bottom of the second, early fireworks in that game because they played tons of games there. I was told they played. UT Martin led off the game with a single and then a home run at one point this spring. Took a 2-0 lead. High school, and that's a pretty big ballpark. You're talking about they haven't had to deal with some of the issues that. Tournaments and stuff like that. So it's a nice spot. Toronto has as far as the alley, there's at least a new 385 that goes all the way out. So it's a big field, especially compared to. So anyway, that was what happened at the game last night, and thoughts and prayers. FedEx Park where they played. Hopefully it's only like 389 to center field. The mother is okay, and the child is anyway. So then the Tigers come back. They've run around George, the Perseus, and Hunter Goodman, the Jeep. Most likely going to be the, that's kind of American Athletic Conference. To the fact that freshman of the year very badly in baseball. Like consistency. Tied the game up. Then Milwaukee over Toronto last night. Bottom of the second. I guess I'm sorry that you weren't able to. As I was about to introduce, even though baseball's not that important, one of the Tiger batters, there was a noise that came. I have some friends out there, and that's I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. From Claw Leonard, who has been phenomenal. But it happens, and hopefully it will not happen in the future. And it sounded like everywhere will be a gunshot or a car back situations. Okay, that's I'm done with that. So. There you go. In the major leagues, the Major League Baseball circuit, if you're familiar with that, over in that same area, there were several antiques. Defeated the Cincinnati Redlegs by a score of 3-1. How about Kyle Hendricks? Went 8 full innings, only allowed 3 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts, 2.86 ERA. Great season vehicles. So far. A Jeep, a Mercedes 3 and 4. No care. He hit that game. When you're welcome to hear Baker that they Cubs were just probably used for like parades or something like that right now. And they were not messing around. And they are in first place. Display for Veterans Appreciation Day. I'm trying to pull it exactly. They're 2.5 games up on the Brewers now. It's really they're tied, and the people were welcome to go and look at the cars, but they've played 5 less games and they have 5 less losses. They check them out inside and out, and apparently there was a 3.5 Jeep there. And apparently a little kid was playing around in the Toronto Blue Jays, saw Vladimir Guerrero. But I'm going to have to say a gun in the bag, so that's a nice thing for him. It's funny, he was running the bases. I just happened to catch it, and the kid thought that it was a toy gun. He didn't know running the bases, and I'm like, golly, man, he runs just like his dad, and the gun went off. Like, that was loaded. Anyway, Paul Hyde was pretty unbelievable, but his dad was a pretty unbelievable ball player. There you go. And now they are into the Western, the Eastern. For all you semi-golf fans, and Tiger Woods finals, and it's a big question will be whether or not that's a championship. What we know right now, Paul High decides to stay in Toronto. Event that was in August, and to close the gap of having, the Masters is the second week in April, and then you would have to wait until June, and it could have been for a lot of people that were there. To close that gap, they moved the PGA Championship in the press box, stay as the cornerstone of the franchise to May. Guys, particularly to have thankfully I didn't really want to open and see it, but there were people were in the stands. They're going to have to get also known as play out of Kyle Lowry. The immediate aftermath when the shot went off, everybody looked over there. Kyle Lowry with the PGA Championship, and they got to get something more out of Marcus Martin. Players, Memphis place was all ran all over the walk. They said which should mean has got to come in time. There had been a technicality at one of their games, so I can understand that in that series. All right, let me quickly get to the story. Beth Page Black from last in New York went back to the dugout. They cleared the field, and that should be an emergency responders came. We asked the fans tonight. I don't know there. And if you saw this, at least as it was happening, and then they cleared and Tiger Woods not thrilled that John Daly was given. They cleared the emergency music scene. There's a lot going on. Bad knee, but because I think they just got knocked games. So that was the last game of the season when he had that prior to in Memphis. So they still have a lot of playoff with Rocco series coming up this weekend at East Carolina. Several years ago, Carolina, and then the conference tournament, the announcement of the draft before he had his whatever residence. But that was the last game in Memphis, and unfortunately, we got to do. I don't know, an inning and a half as I was my last game of the season. Daly had been as the public address announcer. As I mentioned on the show, is a big stadium, and I remember rocking back. University of Minnesota, but he can't walk. They got the dad last night at Millington. They haven't had to deal with any. It is interesting. USA baseball for the Olympics and the Dave Howard Classic. It's a real strain on you. Anyway, it's still a nice stadium. You could use a coat of paint and some other stuff at the end of the show. I will do that when I come back. I want to in the press box, namely air conditioning and some other things. But game started at 6 o'clock. It was an early going next place, and hopefully chime in 452-3094. Tell me who they'll take it number 2. Maybe they'll find some bottom of the night should do with Mike. Second, early fireworks in that game is played tons of games there. Cooler. I was told they play Sox. That's up to you. UT Martin led off the games with a single. We've seen crazier trades. And a home run at one point this spring. Take a 2-0 lead from athletic tape, a case of balls, and a Coke machine. But anyway, and that's a pretty big ballpark you're talking about. They haven't had it on sports. Going to take a quick break. Deal with some of the issues that wrap this tournaments and stuff like that. And we will. So bring it home. It's a nice spot. Toronto has, as far as the alley, at least 3. A new 385 that goes all the way 80. So it's a big field, especially compared to. So anyway. That was what happened at the game last night, and thoughts and prayers. FedEx Park where they played. We're only like 389. Don't forget about money. You can afford a more price to fit every budget. So call me now. Center field. The mother is okay, and the child. Anyway, so then the Tigers come back. They run around base. American the Perseus and Hunter Goodman, the Jeep.
Today we salute you, Mr. Golf Ball Washer and
most likely going to be that's kind of American.
The time-honored game of golf is the sport of kings.
Athletic conference, to the fact that freshman of the year very badly in baseball has played consistency, tied the game up, and
tumbled at every tee. The result:
Milwaukee over Toronto last night. Bottom of the second. I guess I'm sorry that you weren't able to.
Putt, hole after hole.
Again, as I was about to introduce baseball, important. One of the Tiger batters, there was a noise that came. I have some friends out there, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. From Kawhi Leonard, who was stands phenomenal. But You know what happens, and
hey, Memphis, it's the Eye on Sports here.
Hopefully, it will not happen.
As the co-host of the Eye on Sports with B-Ball Jones,
The future, and
or as the
it
extraordinary
sounded like everywhere would be a gunshot or a car back.
Luck would have it, I'm also a real estate agent. My firm, Lipsy Realty, can do anything you require in the realm of real estate. We can list your home for sale.
Okay,
we can help you buy a new one. We do property management, commercial and residential leasing, and we can dish a massive assist when it comes to evaluating, purchasing,
the Major League Baseball,
and managing investment property. Using myself and Lipsy Realty is like a home run, a slam dunk.
Over in that same area.
It's awesome with a capital A, baby. You can find me online at lipsyrealty.com or call me at 362.
There were several antiques.
There's also a Lipsy Realty
defeated the Cincinnati Red
Legs. Give me a call, 901-362-8699, and we'll talk about how Lipsy Realty can assist you.
3-1. How about Kyle Hendricks? Went 8 full innings, only allowed 3 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts, 2.86 ERA. Terry, great season vehicles. So far. A Jeep, a Mercedes 3 and 4. No care. He hit that game. I hear Baker that they Cubs were just probably used for like parades, something like that right now. And they were not messing around. And they are in first place. Display for the Eye on Sports with B-Ball Jones right here on AM 730. It's Appreciation Day, and they're 2.5 games up on the Brewers now. It's really out there. Barbecue contest getting ready to start. They're tied, and people were welcome to go look at the cars and they won. They've played 5 less games and they have 5 less losses. Check them out inside. Of course, I got golf drafts tonight, so I'm going to be worried about that. And apparently there was a 3.5 Jeep there. Important stuff. And apparently a little kid was playing around. There was in Toronto things quickly before I get to Retro News. Blue Jays won. Saw Vladimir Guerrero, but I'm going to have to say a gun in the bag. So that's a nice thing for him. Number 1, it's funny, he was running the bases. I was just happy to catch it. And the kid thought that he was a bully gun. He didn't know he plays like a nil over the Carolina Hurricanes. I got some buddies out there that are big Bruins fans. Golly, man, he'd give him a shout out. That's just like his dad. I guess compensation for the Celtics having a and the gun went off. That was loaded. They would call highlight pretty unbelievable. And his dad was a pretty unbelievable ball player. They had to give him a shot. There you go. And now they are into the Western League. There you go. I know. He thought it was funny too. Anyway, that's for all you semi-golf fans. The Western Conference has got and Tiger Woods finals in. There's a big question whether or not that's the Blues championship. What we know right now, High decides to stay in Toronto. An event that was in August. Sharks. And I believe their series is tied at 1. Close the gap of having the major was to play game number 3. The Masters is the second week in April. I used to know, and then you would have about hockey than I do now. So that really means I know nothing. I have to wait until June, and this could have been for a lot of people that were there. I was just we don't have a team here. I'm not really. So to close that gap, a lot of people get it. They moved the PGA Championship. Predators are having success. The press box, stay as the cornerstone of the franchise. Could get a better guys, particularly thankfully I didn't going in really was open and the seats that they were in the stand. I know they're going to have to get also known as play out of Kyle Lowry. The immediate aftermath when the shot went off, everybody looked over there. Whether they're good or bad. Lowry, PGA Championship, and they got to get something more out of Marcus Martin. Supportive of the type of players, Memphis place was all ran all over the games. Maybe I'll have to get somebody on that lives in Nashville, former Memphian that really they said should mean how Nashvillians has got to come in time. They're not how they feel about the Grizzlies when the Grizzlies are real. I don't. If you're out of sight, 180 miles, 200 miles shooting at one of their games, so I can understand it when the Grizzlies are standing. And that's serious. Anyway, all right, let me quickly get to supportive of the Grizzlies. That page from last in new game. Went back to the dugout, they cleared the field, and that should be an emergency responders came. We asked the fans tonight, I don't know a couple of if you saw this, or at least as it was happening, and then they cleared and Tiger Woods not thrilled that John Daly was given. They cleared the emergency music scene. It may just be a dream, but it is what it is. Let me give a couple of birthday shout outs. There's a lot going on. Bad knee, and Richard News, as you may have heard me, because I think they just got knocked in. Celebration of the release. The last game of the season album, he had that prior to in Memphis, so they still have a lot of people playoff with. Series coming up this weekend at East Carolina. 1986. Raised several years ago, Carolina, and then the conference tournament. He now got this album for Hanukkah on one of the last draft before he had his whatever incidents. But that was the last game of Memphis, and unfortunately, I scratched. I got to do. I don't know if you should anything to imitate. As I was my last game of the season, trying to do all that stuff, and that was the end of the album. But it was worth it. He had been as the public address announcer. As I mentioned on the show, I wanted to start an all big stadium, and I remember rocking back. Like with live instruments. And I wanted to call it my Adidas, but I couldn't tell. I can't walk. They got to do that last night at Millington. They have matching Adidas jumpsuits. But they stay within it. It is interesting. USA baseball for the Olympics and the Dave Howard Classic. It's a real strain on you. Anyway, we're naming the greatest rap groups of all time. It's still a nice stadium. You could use a coat of paint and some other stuff to the show. Birthdays. Let's get to a couple of them. Also in the rap. Do that when I come back. I want to the press box, namely air conditioning and I don't know some other things. Game started at 6 o'clock. It was an early going place. I guess you might not know Grandmaster Melly Mel. I didn't really hopefully his stuff chime in 45230. He's Grandmaster Melly Mel. They'll make it number 2. Maybe they'll find some bottom of the night should do with like second. Early fireworks in that game was about like a played tons of games there. I was told they pretty sweet number. Play Sox. I had that. That's up to you. I Ain't No Joke by Eric B. and Rakim on there. It was a pretty sweet mixtape. Martin led off the games with a single. We've seen crazier trades. Never find it. Happy birthday, number 79 at Don Nelson. Apparently, he's living the life up in Hawaii. Grizzlies at one point this spring. Take a 2-0 lead. Willie Nelson, athletic taste, in case of balls. Sounds like he's really enjoying retirement, as he should. Lord knows he was screaming on the NBA sidelines. Anyway, that's a pretty big ball. Also a birthday, 62 years old, Kevin Von Erich. That's what we're talking about. They haven't had it down on sports. Tragic Von Erich. Quick break. Dealing with some of the issues that wrapped us tournaments in the 80s. Stuff like there was that. So it's Fritz, I think, was the dad. There was a bunch of them. And like several of them. Nice spot. Toronto has, or the alley, at least accidents, whatever. Be a new 3. We have to leave the show on a downer, but that's just kind of the way it goes. 85 that goes all the way 80. So it's a big field. We'll be back here tomorrow, AM 1600 WMQM. Especially compared to. So anyway, out of here.
This is the old Trailblazer broadcast. This is Pastor Albert Pendarvis, pastor here at Radio Missions, where they broadcast.
That was what happened at the game last night.
Radio stations, the old Trailblazer broadcast, the Voice of Truth, our regular service here, and the old Trailblazer.